Good evening, YouTube. This is Ty Metalhead Weatherman. I hope you guys have had a good Tuesday. Honestly, to me, it feels like the week's gone by pretty fast, but we got a lot to unpack in today's video as the tropics are starting to go off once again, and we, of course, have our incoming severe weather threat towards the end of the week. So we're going to go ahead and cover both of those today. So this could be a lengthy video, so buckle your seatbelts. So the first half of this video is most likely going to be tropics. I'll see how quickly I can get through that, and the other half is going to be severe weather. So I may do a little timestamp in the description, so that way, if any parts of this video are relevant to you, you know which ones to go to. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the tropics first, where we now have Tropical Storm Martin. I honestly wrote this storm system off that was out here in the Atlantic, but apparently it's gotten its act together, and if you take a look at the current satellite imagery right here, it's actually very well organized and I would be shocked if this doesn't make it to hurricane status at this point. Waters are still relatively warm over this region, but they're nothing like what's going on down here. So I wasn't really thinking anything about this system really getting too far along, if it was going to even form. It was just taking forever to really get its act together, and then all of a sudden there it was. This doesn't look like it's going to be a threat to land, but this is going to be an issue for shipping lanes. So anyone that might know somebody out in this region of the Atlantic that would tend to go along one of these routes here, just kind of tell them to be on the lookout if you can get a hold of them before they either go out, or if they're out and you can somehow get a hold of them, definitely let them know there. Then we also look down here, we have Tropical Storm Lisa, now strengthened up to 65 miles an hour. Central low pressure just under 1,000 millibars, sitting at 996 to be exact. Moving at 15 miles an hour to the west. And this is slated to hit Belize. We'll go ahead and take a look at the actual water vapor, well, not water vapor, but the infrared satellite as it's gotten dark over these regions here. And we can kind of see that both of these storms are really starting to get into that strengthening trend that we're always looking for here. Especially on this right flank here of Martin. You can see additional convection starting to form here. And this probably does make it to hurricane status. We'll go over that in a minute. But really, the most impressive imagery here is Lisa right here. It is getting a little cold here, but there is still some signs of convection around the eye wall here. Or it is trying to form an eye, I should say. It's not quite formed just yet, but it definitely is showing signs of intensifying as it draws ever closer to Belize and areas in Central America here. I'm pretty sure hurricane watches and maybe even warnings now are in effect, so let's go ahead and start out by taking a look at Lisa here. Alright, so here's Lisa right now. Here's a look at the satellite imagery here. Now it's expected to make it to a 90 mile per hour category 1. Things have changed pretty quick, but like I said, this region around here has always been a danger zone this year. Should any storms form around these straits here, you always have to watch them for the potential for rapid intensification. I don't think we're quite getting to that scenario just yet. I don't think it's strengthening fast enough to do that, but it's still going to end up becoming strong enough to cause pretty big problems around Belize and other parts of central Mexico as time goes on. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and look at the spaghetti models here. Direct impact into Belize. I don't know why I was about to call it Louise. It's weird. But looks like it goes through Guatemala after that, then into Mexico, then goes into the Yucatan Peninsula region, and then we're just trying to figure out what it does next. It may actually, according to this this bold blue line, which is where the conjunction of models tend to agree with one another, this actually looks like it starts to take a little U-turn and may come back towards land once more after it gets back out into the Gulf. So that's going to be interesting. I think it might get shot that way once this frontal system passes through and causes the weather that we're going to be talking about towards the southern plains here. Then it'll get caught on the fringes of that cold front and pushed back down into Central America. So we may have round 2 here for you guys, unfortunately. So we'll just see how things go. But yeah, this could turn into a big issue here. So here we are. We're now upgraded to hurricane warnings for the entire coastline of Belize. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it Louise. Why is that on my mind right now? Rick, if you're hearing this, don't. Anyway, never mind. That being said, we have this slated to become a hurricane, and of course, here's a look at the forecast track here. We also have tropical storm warnings along Honduras and parts of Guatemala as well. There's also a few hurricane warnings there as well, towards maybe the northern coastlines here. I think within the next 24 hours, I would start to expect the potential tropical storm force winds to maybe make impact around this region here. So that being said, let's go ahead and get a better look at the spaghetti models if I can find them. There we go. So we've looked at the track here. Let's go ahead and look at the intensity now. And a few of these, of course, since the most recent update, they're trying to push this to category 2. And at this point, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, like I said, this is in a region where the waters, they haven't been tampered with too much. So there hasn't been too much upwelling to bring that cold water up to the surface from previous storms. So I think there's still plenty of abundant warm water to work with around this region. We'll have to watch this and see how things progress with it. But category 2 isn't out of the realm of possibilities. I will say that. What does seem pretty likely to be out of the realm of possibilities is a U.S. impact. Only one forecast or one spaghetti model has that. That's what we tend to usually call an outlier. Outliers are usually not with the plot. And usually we don't worry about these, and I'm not worried about this one here. A lot of them actually have it making that little U-turn that I was talking about here and maybe coming out towards the Pacific, towards the southern Pacific. But by that point, it'll just be a big rainmaker for these regions, which would not be good news either way, because I think this will be a major flood issue should this occur. But yeah, we get a couple of models here that are pushing this towards the fringe of category 2, which would be about 100-mile-per-hour storm possibly. But of course, once it goes through land, it tends to weaken really fast, and then after that, it'll be a mystery to see what it does from that point. So let's go ahead and look at Martin now. So here we are looking at Tropical Storm Martin, expected to become a large hurricane, threatening shipping lanes around this region. But as far as threats to land are concerned, I'm not super worried. If anything, it could make a landfall near Greenland. I'm highly doubtful of that, though, to be honest. But this definitely looks like it has the potential to disrupt the commerce here between maybe the U.S. and Europe as far as this shipping is concerned. But beyond that, not super worried. Maybe as a post-tropical entity, it may work its way towards the UK or more of the Baltic, maybe even the Scandinavian regions. But that's so far out, I'm not really going to try to speak too much into that right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the intensity here. Right now we're expecting also a 90-mile-per-hour storm, but there are few of these are actually pushing it beyond category 2 here. Just a couple right now, but we'll have to see how things progress here. From what I was seeing on the satellite, it looked like the wind shear around this region was relatively light. It's in a good pocket right now, so perhaps it could become a little bit stronger, but we'll have to see how things progress with that as well. But that's really all we got going with those. So let's go ahead and talk about the severe weather regions for the weekend, this upcoming week, towards the end of the week. Tomorrow is going to be a quiet day, no severe, but now we're on to day 3. We have that slight risk that we've been talking about for the last couple of days. Not much has really changed with this region here. It's pretty much the same as it's been. Stretched a little bit further to the east. We're now including Wichita this time, but other than that, it's pretty much all the same areas. We're looking at Lubbock, Amarillo, Woodward, Liberal, and just to the east of Garden City is where we're expecting a severe weather threat, where we're honestly looking at the potential for all modes being possible. But interestingly enough, this looks like it's going to be Thursday, may really be Thursday night, Friday morning. It's like a nocturnal threat. We talked a little bit about this in the video yesterday. Link will be in the top right hand corner for that. But I'm very concerned about a potential nocturnal severe weather event, which includes the threats for tornadoes here. So definitely in these regions, have a way to be warned should severe thunderstorm or tornado warning be issued for you guys. We'll go ahead and talk about the parameters to that, and we'll also talk about Friday as well, because there is a big slight risk area for Friday, but this is a little bit more conditional now. There's a few parameters that could affect how this plays out here. Plenty of low-level moisture, but there will be a lot of cloud cover over this region as well, which could affect instability, which is extremely important for severe thunderstorm and tornado development. But this is a pretty big area should this come to fruition. We're even looking at the Texas-Mexico border even being involved in this here, but everywhere from San Antonio all the way up towards Wichita, once again, could be at risk for some severe weather. This could also be a bleed over from the Thursday night threat as well, but we're also looking at areas now like Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Norman, Fort Sill, Wichita Falls, Texas. Then we have Dallas, Waco, and Houston, of course. So it's a pretty big area of people that could be affected here should this come into play. But again, there is some discrepancy here between models, and a little less confidence, a little less certainty here. And this load doesn't look quite as robust as what we've been seeing over the last few days. We'll go ahead and talk about that real quick, though. First off, though, we'll take a look at the Cape for tonight. For not tonight, but on Thursday. That's how you know it's been a long day. But it's not really until we get into the late night hours after OOZ here, which is about 8 o'clock my time on Thursday, where we start to look at these Cape values really starting to blossom here. We're starting to look at values that are pushing towards 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. Very dangerous type of setup, especially once you start to get into 10, 11 o'clock. Look at that. By 11 o'clock, possibly my time, which would be 10 o'clock Eastern, we're still sitting at temperatures in the mid-60s here. Dew points near the 60s as well. Looks like we have some pretty sufficient lapse rates at this part of the atmosphere. Cape values are pushing about 1,500 here. And we also have a significant tornado parameter of 3, or STP. So conditions do seem favorable around this region. There is a little bit of turning of the winds with height, or wind shear as we call it. So we're gonna have to be watching this pretty closely over the next couple of days here, because I'm not liking that look right there. It's never a good look. So we go into Friday here now, and Cape over this region is very rich. But there is one factor that could go into maybe inhibiting this severe weather threat here. But mainly we're going to be looking especially towards southern Texas for this severe weather threat here. Be a first time actually getting a good look at the sounding here. And this is also what I was talking about yesterday here. This is a pretty this setup has some pretty good potential here. Cape values are actually higher, and this hordeograph here looks a little bit more ominous. The only thing is though, cloud cover is going to become a big deal, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But if if there's any points where anywhere over this region can get a break, get some breaks of sunshine for about an hour or two, this could turn into a very volatile environment, and we could end up seeing some pretty significant weather. So we could tell quickly there that there are pretty sufficient lapse rates there. Let's go ahead and look at the shear too while we're at it. And this is the shear. This is a model that looks at wind shear from the surface levels from where we are on Earth all the way up to the mid levels of the atmosphere, which is about 20 to 30,000 feet up. So whenever you start to get into these purple colors here, where we're looking at about 40, somewhere between 40 to 70 knots of wind shear, that's usually the telltale sign of potential severe weather, maybe even tornado juice, as some YouTubers like to call it. So here we are. This is our storm system moving in here. And once we get into late Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, look at this big push that we get right here. This is towards 8 o'clock my time. And look at that. Once we get to 06 here, that's in the overnight hours. These barbs are coming in from the, we have that, remember we've had that southwesterly flow that I've been talking about for the moisture right here. And then we have this little area here going towards the northeast. So what I would want you to do in this situation is almost imagine yourself having a pencil and then putting it in between your hands and moving it in those two directions. You have vertical shear now, you have horizontal shear. I think you can kind of do the math here. This looks relatively volatile. And once we get into Friday, this area still looks like it's pretty robust, although it does look a tad bit more linear. But there's also a dependatory factor based off of more or less whether or not the clouds even clear out enough for there to be a severe weather mode of any kind. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that right now. So this is something I recently found on here with Pivotal Weather, which is really cool. And this can actually kind of depict what the cloud cover over this region may look like. It's all represented here in the blue, and the lighter the color, the lighter the shade of blue, the denser the cloud cover. So move this along here. And if you notice on Wednesday, there's some cloud cover, but late in the day, a lot of it starts to clear out. It's relatively light, and then those storms start forming. And it's after those storms start forming, and then over this region, look at it. We're at 100% cloud cover for a good part of the day, but over here towards the southern part of Texas, towards the coast here and towards the border, we're starting to get those clouds to really start to lighten up. So this could be a region where we may even see an enhanced risk issued. Because once we get to about 21 to OZ, which would be about maybe 5, 8 o'clock, we're back to 100% cloud cover over a lot of this region. So this is going to be very dependatory about how long this cloud cover lasts, and if by some chance the sun ends up burning this off, because this could inhibit destabilization of the atmosphere, and that's all. And like I said, storms are not going to fire if the atmosphere is stable. So that being said, it's a lot of moving parts with this system, and it looks like, depending on the cloud cover, could determine whether we could end up having a severe weather outbreak on Friday, or a pretty modest day, honestly. That and the low pressure itself just seems like it's not going to be quite as robust here. So here we are, we're getting into the overnight hours, and that's when these storms start firing here. They're firing in segments here, but they're also firing right on top of this surface low, of this upper level low right here. But also this low pressure looks like it's a little bit weaker. Like we were kind of sitting a little bit more towards 1,000 millibars, maybe 1,002 millibars. When you have an increase in millibars, that usually depicts a weakening low pressure, not a strengthening one. So once we get to the okay, hang on, here we go. Looks like we get a line of storms here, but we also, towards the south side where those clouds may clear up a little bit quicker, it looks like we do get that little kidney bean shape right here that we're talking about here. These are this has the look of supercell thunderstorms. That's the signal that we're getting here. Towards the south side of this, we're getting supercell thunderstorms and even some embedded ones within this line. That could be some real trouble here. This one even almost has a look of maybe having a hook appendage on here. And that may be indicative of potential of some tornadic potential, but again, with it being so far out, I can't hone in on it exactly, but this environment does definitely have the potential to produce all hazards of severe weather. So we'll have to watch this really closely. And then by Saturday, this line starts to really weaken and just becomes a heavy rain event for some of us here in the southeast. By the time we get into Alabama and Georgia, I'm thinking that this storm system will start to really fall apart and won't even be a factor for any areas further out to the east. But that's it for this video. I'm wondering how long this one was. Oh, 20 minutes. Sounds about right here. But yeah, if you liked what I did in this video, even though I know it was a long one and I apologize for it, drop me a like. Let me know what your thoughts are on this potential severe weather threat. Do you think the clouds will burn off or not? And if you have, and share this video, get it out to the people that may need this. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so already. Especially since I looked on my page here and I see that over 70% of you aren't subscribed. What are you doing? I'm trying to get to 100 subs by the end of the year. Help me out, man. But anyways, this has been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. I will see you in the next video. You guys have a good night.